Good evening, and thank you for joining me with Conversations with Taz. And we have a new green screen because you'll see there's going to be a lot of man Cassidy tonight. Because we know one thing: if men don't have anything else, they have the audacity. It saddens me to bring you the first story coming from CBSNews.com. Out of San Antonio. 51 migrants die after being abandoned in back of tractor trailer in San Antonio. At least 51 migrants died after they were abandoned in the back of a tractor trailer that was discovered Monday in San Antonio, officials said Tuesday. More than a dozen excuse me, more than a dozen others were taken to local hospitals with heat-related injuries. Federal law enforcement officials confirmed to CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Saganya, I think that's how you pronounce it. My apologies. This appears to be the deadliest human smuggling case in modern U.S. history. During a Tuesday afternoon press conference, officials with Bexar County, Texas, which includes San Antonio, said the death toll had risen to 51. Among the dead were 39 men and 12 women. County spokesman Ted Peen told reporters, "Not all of the victims have been identified, and some of the victims could be under 18 years old," he said. The things people do for sanctuary, for freedom, and, just to be safe. And this is the toll that they're paying. Whew. My week would be a lot better if this dog would behave. Still a little bit under the weather, but we're going to do our best to make it through. Moving on to a little bit of brighter news. Any of you all familiar with Full House or the reboot Fuller House on Netflix should be very familiar with Jodie Sweetin. And coming from AOL.com, Jodie Sweetin on police altercation at abortion protest. There was a lot of passion. Jodie Sweetin hopes her altercation with the LAPD draws attention to police brutality and women's rights. Sweetin was tossed to the ground by LAPD officers during an abortion rights protest on Saturday in Los Angeles. The Full House star spoke out about the incident on CNN's New Day, explaining that police were trying to take protesters' bikes and that young girls, maybe 15 or 16, were wrestled to the ground. There was a lot of passion and a lot of heat out there. The 40-year-old actress recalled on Tuesday, clarifying she's not going after the LAPD by speaking out. "I'm not suing anybody. That's not the point of any of this." Sweetin was pushed when a group of activists were protesting the Supreme Court's ruling to strike down Roe v. Wade near the 101 freeway. A spokesperson for the LAPD previously told Yahoo Entertainment the force used will be evaluated against the LAPD's policy and procedure. I think we know what their policy and procedure is. It's called a PR team and great force. I don't know what the right answer would have been, but the police had the freeway blocked off. There was no one going forward, Sweetin said. It was pretty clear that no one was going on the freeway. Sweetin knows the incident made national headlines because of her name. People focus on police brutality more when an actress that they know gets tossed to the ground rather than a person of color being severely injured, she added. "I just want to keep bringing attention back to that fact." And kudos. At least we have one impeccable cast member from that show. Now, of course, we know. Oops. There was a special hearing. Sorry, I'm doing this with my left hand. For January 6th. And y'all know I have an opinion about it. Well, let's get into these videos.
The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. When Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles. I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall, and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the Attorney General's AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall. Once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not, we don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing," the president had very strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
I'm going to give you a little bit more background information that I'm going to speak on it. My full thoughts are included in a blog that's tagged to this video called Boss Baby Trump. But coming from the Los Angeles Times, Trump attacked Secret Service agent in attempt to reach Capitol on January 6, aide testifies. President Trump lunged at Secret Service agent, putting his hand on the man's throat after he was told he would not be taken to the Capitol on January 6, 2021, according to testimony by former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. The president had a very strong, very angry response to being told the Secret Service couldn't take him to the Capitol after his speech on the ellipse that day. Hutchinson testified during Tuesday's hearing before the January 6th committee. "I'm the effing president. Take me up to the Capitol now," Trump said, according to Hutchinson's testimony. I promise you, if I wasn't living this, like 30 years from now, if I was a student, I would think that we were making up history. He most definitely was throwing a full-on tantrum, throwing dishes, all sorts of stuff. Hold on. I got another article. I'm just going to give you the cliff notes out of this article because they've broken it down. Coming from the Associated Press. Takeaways: angry Trump, dire legal warnings, and catch up. So angry, defiant, vulgar Trump. Trump was angry and defiant on the morning of January 6th as he assessed the size of the crowd for his Stop the Steal rally in front of the White House, upset that not everyone who had answered his summons to come to Washington could get to see him because of security lines. How narcissistic. He was told that guns, knives, brass knuckles, and other weapons were being confiscated from security screenings, and Trump didn't care. "They're not here to hurt me," the president said. He wanted to take away the magnetometer stations to allow more people inside the grounds, regardless of their weaponry. In layman's terms, he wanted the metal detectors removed. He wanted them to be able to bring weapons onto federal property. White House lawyers worry of crimes. Trump's lawyers at the White House were trying to tamp down the president's speech to the crowd he had summoned for January 6th, and they were trying to stop his plans to go to the Capitol that day when Congress would be certifying the election results for Biden's victory. Hutchinson testified that lawyer Eric Hirschman said it would be foolish to include some of the language the defeated president wanted to add to his speech. Comments like "fighting for Trump" or telling the crowd, "I'll be there with you." Hirschman warned such language shouldn't be included for legal concerns and because of the optics it would portray. We know Trump didn't listen. Proximity to power and catch up. The hearing opened with a calm, even-spoken Hutchinson explaining her job responsibilities, advising Meadows, often handling his cell phones, as the committee showed an architectural rendering of the layout of the West Wing. Hutchinson's office was situated between the Oval Office on one side and Meadows' office at the end of the hall on the other. Hers was also next to that of the vice president's staff. She had an upfront view of conversations across the offices and beyond. Hutchison described fielding a desperate phone call as she stood backstage at Trump's rally the day that House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy, who was upset that Trump had sent the crowd to the Capitol when she had promised they would not go. So it goes on to, he threw a hissy fit and threw a plate across the room. And if you've paid any attention to Trump and his shenanigans and his eating habits, he eats a lot of ketchup on everything, including steak, which he has done cooked well done. It's weird. It has to be embarrassing to still follow and promote and believe Trump at this point. But like I said in the blog, the one that is attached in the description of this video, I have to give Trump credit for one thing. He involved so many people that there's a whole network refusing to cover this. And it is my theory that they're refusing to cover it so that their viewers don't see when they are implicated or when it comes out that they knew the truth, because they have so many people's phones and so many text messages and emails that were sent back and forth that day. Fox News anchors are going to be exposed. There are other people who are pleading the fifth and all these other things. But just like today, there was yet another subpoena issued for an attorney that had to give up his phone. Had to give up his phone. And they frisked him and everything to make sure he had one phone and one phone only. And see, Trump believes that if he keeps it analog, if he keeps it old school, he can't ever be caught up on anything. And it's like, Trump, just because you decide not to use technology because you still think it's 1992, everyone around you does. And especially after books were written while the Trumps were still in the White House with recordings, most notably of Melania Trump, everybody's trying to cover their butt. But you know, it is what it is. And let's not forget this next story. Coming from The Guardian, Ghislaine Maxwell sentenced to 20 years in prison for sex trafficking crimes. Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced on Tuesday to 20 years in prison in her New York sex trafficking case for procuring teen girls for Jeffrey Epstein for him to abuse. Maxwell, 60, has maintained her innocence. Now, I know a lot of women have been put in questionable circumstances because they've been married to serial rapists, serial killers, and these men went to great lengths to hide things from them. But Ghislaine, homegirl, all of these victims ID'd you. You were right there. You were complicit in it. There's no way on any planet, in any multiverse, that you're innocent. But I digress. Maxwell's attorneys had pushed for leniency in sentencing, I think not, saying that she should receive well below the 20 years recommended by federal probation officials. White ladies here say what? Prosecutors pushed for a sentence of 30 to 55 years in prison. My thing is, give her to 55. Maxwell, a former British socialite, was convicted on December 29th of 5 of 6 charges she faced. The jury came to their decision after 40 hours of deliberation spanning 6 days. In addition to sex trafficking, Maxwell was convicted of conspiracy to entice individuals under the age of 17 to travel in interstate commerce with intent to engage in illegal sexual activity, conspiracy to transport individuals under the age of 17 to travel in interstate commerce with the intent to engage in illegal sexual activity, transportation of an individual under the age of 17 with the intent to engage in illegal sexual activity, and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of individuals under the age of 18. I'm glad they finally broke that down. This is why she wasn't charged with the Mann Act. The Mann Act deals with people 18 and over. Yes, does deal with transporting people over the state lines for salacious acts, but they were under 18. So for all of you all that keep saying she should have been charged with the Mann Act, she should have been charged with the Mann Act, there are ages attached to quite a few laws, and you have to keep that in mind. But let's see. Maxwell was escorted into the courtroom in ankle shackles and throughout the 3-hour proceeding had an unsettled demeanor. Was she supposed to be jumping for joy and praise? Well, okay. She repeatedly touched her hair, sometimes tucking it behind her ears, scratched her neck, and sipped water throughout the proceedings. She probably having withdrawals because you know how them people like the booger sugar. The former media heiress wore drab gray blue jail scrubs and a white undershirt. She turned to look at her 3 siblings who were seated behind her in court, Isabel, Christine, and Kevin, multiple times. Girl, you done ruined them, but I guess stand by your sister. Yeah, I could never, but do you, boo-boo. But Maxwell did not offer much in the way of an apology for her actions. When Maxwell stood at the plexiglass enclosed lectern to speak, she said, "I empathize deeply with all the victims in this case. I also acknowledge that I have been convicted of helping Jeffrey Epstein commit these crimes," said Maxwell, whose statement marked the first time she has publicly addressed these allegations. "And despite the many helpful and positive things I've done in my life and will continue to do," from where? Who are you helping? They're not going to like you in prison. You was messing with somebody's baby. "I know my association with Epstein and this case will forever and permanently stain me." Girl, hold on. How old is she again? Wait a second. She's 60. Girl, ain't nobody going to be thinking about you when you 80 if you make it. And if you do something else, I'm sure somebody will tap you on the shoulder and break your hip. Maxwell attempted to pin the blame on Epstein. Of course, blame it on the dead man, like y'all weren't in cahoots. "Jeffrey Epstein should have been here before all of you. He should have stood before you, all of you those years ago. He should have stood before you in 2005, again in 2009, and again in 2019, Maxwell continued, adding shortly thereafter, "I am sorry for the pain you experienced." If you know that he was busted in 2005 and got let off, busted in 2009 and got off, and then in 2019 offed himself, why didn't you turn state's evidence? Why weren't you the one turning him in? Because I'm sorry, if I start dating someone and then all of a sudden they want to start bringing young girls around, I'm going to be the first one to snitch. And I had someone previously in my life that I had an inclination that they had that predilection. And I put my Inspector Clouseau hat on and did some digging. Now, come to find out, they wasn't touching on little kids. They just were weird. And just wanted to be the cool parent. Okay? Convince them to go get some counseling to get that together. But baby, I'm not ride or die. I'm ride and slide. They ain't even got to bring me no KFC. But, Conversations with Taz wouldn't be a Conversations with Taz if we did not update you on a little Amber Heard nuggets. Here we go.
Amber Heard has done the impossible. So recently, Amber Heard was spotted shopping at TJ Maxx right there and also right there. And the reason this is impossible is because people are wondering why she's shopping at TJ Maxx when she's worth negative $6 million. Where did this money come from? Well, she actually started an OF. And guess how much her subscription is? $6 million. And guess who's supporting this? Travis Scott.
Well, it looks like shortly after he started, he stopped, and word on the street is her OnlyFans was shut down within 24 hours. When I went to go check, there is nothing. And evidently, she started this OnlyFans back in 2020. At least that's what the street birdies are saying.
If corporations are paying $4,000 plus to their female employees to kill their baby, they should pay them the same to celebrate life when their employees become mothers. Actually, I agree. They could do this in the form of time off to bond with the baby. Perhaps call it mandated maternity leave and make it a law. I'd love that. Some paid maternity leave and paternity leave. Sounds good to me. I will always defend the right to life. This has become a pattern with you. First you quoted Hitler in a speech, and then you called the overturning of Roe a victory for white life. If you haven't seen this video, look her up. She literally said this in front of a crowd with Trump there, and they all cheered. Of course. Gotta feel bad for these triple vaxxed and masked suckers walking around. Every village needs some idiots. We need less. Talk to the families of the 1 million Americans who died from COVID. Try them first. This makes me laugh because she keeps talking about having liberty and freedom in America and then says horrible things about people using their liberty and freedom in America.
What I think is the strangest thing, and it always happens with the GOP, that they get on social media and have all of these public speeches complaining about the government as if they're not working in the government. Like, you're complaining about your job not getting done, and their sycophants are like, yeah, we're going to stick it to them next election. Why next election? Get in there and get this stuff done now. Oh, that's right. The vast majority of people complaining on the side of the GOP have no committee seats. They've either been censured or they're babbling idiots. And as far as Tommy Lauren, she is a walking ball of contradiction. She is just trying to grift in the good old GOP fashion. That, baby, that is all she's doing. But let's take a pause for the Pride ad, then we'll be back. I'm going to talk about the current viral video that's going on, and of course, dig into the whole Roe v. Wade thing, because I want to discuss something that most people are missing regarding the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, see you in 2 and 2.
I wanted to discuss this video that has gone viral not only on TikTok, but as well as other social media platforms. Let's jump right into it.
That's just one burger? One burger, one fry?
What he like? What do you mean?
Okay, what about my other kids?
What about your other kids? They ain't mine.
Okay, but them your kids' siblings, though.
What are you talking about? What are you mad
Them
at?
my kids, them your kids' siblings, though.
So what you
So my other kids finna be left out.
You didn't feed them?
You know I don't give my food stamps to the seven.
Lisa, how? Is that my problem?
But if you're trying to help out, though, you're not helping out.
I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to help my son.
But how are you helping your son when you're only getting food child.
The child that's mine, silly.
No, that's dumb that you can't feed the other kids. Don't feed nobody at all. Then he can't take that. He can't eat it.
Maybe if you had one or two, I could maybe. You got it's three extra kids. What the
Okay, so y'all have seen the gist of this video that's going viral. Although I understand where mom is coming from in terms of the child eating in front of their other siblings, I have to agree with dad on this one. It's not his responsibility to feed the other children unless he absolutely chooses to do so, which he acknowledges that if there were less children, that he wouldn't have had a problem with doing it. So what are you all's thoughts on this one?
Now I know somebody who's like this. Their child was like in a program, like with the mentor, and the mentor had taken them somewhere and they got upset. Like, well, you didn't bring stuff for the other kids. Well, the other kids weren't in this program and that wasn't their mentor. Like, but here's what I take from watching this video. Number one, people commenting, stop projecting your situation onto that one. Everybody is tearing down the father who showed up. Nobody's mentioning the other fathers that didn't. Now, there's one or two things that went on. She only called the last baby daddy because she set a pattern of, oh, well, I got a kid with you. I got this other kid, but I was with you last. You should come through and take care of all of them. Or she called all of the baby daddies and only one showed up. And instead of letting that child go and eat or just saying, hey, can you keep him from the night while I figure this out for the rest of the kids? Okay. Also, it's evident that she said, hey, I don't have food in the house. Your child is hungry. So he provided for his child, which is appropriate. You were tied to your relative for life, meaning that man is tied to his son for life, not to that woman. And you all need to stop saying, oh, well, we're tied together for life because of this child. No, you two are not related. That child is related to you. That child is related to the other parent. It is both of you all's responsibility to take care of the one you're related to. It's also evident he did not know that the other kids' fathers didn't show up and there was no food for the other kids when he purchased for his children. She just made the assumption that he was just going to come and splurge on the whole household. That's not how that works. That's not how any of that works. Not once. And I dated someone who the mother of their child would try that. But this is what she would do. She would call both of her baby fathers and be like, oh, I don't have food, and get what she wanted for the kids and get what she wanted for herself. And I told him, I said, if your child is hungry, go pick them up. Go take them out to eat. The other father can step up, or if it's just that child there, she can step up. We are the adults. We know how to budget. We know how to stretch food out. We know, hey, little Billy, you can't have 16 snacks today. But I love how she continuously skated over the other fathers. She looks at the most recent father as if they are supposed to take care of all of these children, and that is not the case. And it is very, very clear and very evident they're not in a relationship. So this is not a man who came in and was like, oh, we're a big family. We have a child together. I've taken on the head of household role. No. This is about as crazy as the Am I the Asshole story off of Reddit, where a guy's former roommate wanted to sue him for child support. That child was born when they became roommates. That child is not his. She knows it's not his, but she's expecting him to take care of this child because they spent years as roommates. And from time to time, he would do something nice or share a snack with the child. Sorry, not sorry. Some of y'all women are doing the most. You are holding one man accountable. You get one good man in your life and you want to run him into the ground. And that is what happened here. Talking about everybody thinks you're such a good daddy and you're not. He obviously is for his child. And for those of you all going, oh, well, what about the other kids? That can affect the other kids. That is on the mother. That is on the mother to fix that. And that is on the other fathers to make sure that their children do not feel less than. That child should not suffer because his siblings have deadbeat ass parents. It is what it is. Y'all can be mad at me for that, but that's my 2 cents. I'm going to sit it on the table. You can take it or you can leave it. Now, I know everybody is in a stir because we got the white women believing that they are stuck in the handmaid's tale. I'm not going to touch on that. You want to know my feelings about that? There's a blog about it attached to the description of this video. But I think there's something that you all are missing. You need to start contacting your congressmen and women. And I'm going to tell you why. During at least, four of them during their confirmation hearings lied under oath regarding their views on Roe v. Wade and abortion. Perjury under oath is an impeachable offense for the Supreme Court of the United States. Yes, the SCOTUS can be impeached. 15 justices have been impeached in the history of the United States and in the history of the SCOTUS. Now, this has to happen under Congress, just like other impeachments, just like with the president. But you can make it known to your Congress people, hey, they lied. I do not appreciate this. That is not proper representation. I need to be able to trust those that are a part of the highest court in the land, especially since it's a lifetime term. And light a fire underneath them. It is time, as much as y'all joke about the French being weak, they are not weak when it comes to them preserving or advancing their rights. They will burn the country down before they allow themselves to be oppressed. I'm just asking you to write a letter, make some phone calls, send some emails. That is the course of action you need to be going on. And just to back up what I'm saying, let's go to WUSA9.com. Can a Supreme Court justice be impeached if the judge lied during confirmation hearings? Yes, as long as the majority of the House votes for impeachment, then the Senate needs to pass a conviction with a vote of 2/3 or 67 votes. Oh, wait, there's more. Now, coming from Politico.com, how to impeach a Supreme Court justice. Revelations that Virginia Thomas exchanged at least 29 known text messages with former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, urging disruption of the November 2020 election results favoring President Joseph Biden, have created a conflict of interest scandal surrounding the Supreme Court, where her husband Clarence Thomas is an associate justice. Justice Thomas's participation in multiple cases related to the outcome of the election, including his lone vote to prevent the January 6th committee from accessing White House records relevant to its investigation of the riot at the Capitol, has led to calls for ethics reforms at the court, as well as his resignation. Given the unlikelihood of an admission of impropriety from Thomas, there is a more extreme avenue available to lawmakers who would seek to hold him accountable for compromising the neutrality and legitimacy of the court: impeachment. Absent fuller facts as Thomas's potential involvement in his wife's effort, it's too soon to tell whether impeachment is sustainably warranted. After 2 failed attempts to convict former President Donald Trump on impeachment charges, not to mention former President Bill Clinton's acquittal before that. But here's the caveat. Right now, Democrats are in control. This is the time to move. This is the time to send a clear and present signal ahead of the midterm elections. You want to light a fire underneath the Democrats? Light a fire underneath them now. Tell them what you want and tell them what you want expeditiously, and hold your vote over their head, because they are not the only non-GOP members running in the midterm elections. They love their position so much, it's time for them to earn their keep. And this is the time right now to either petition Joe Biden to stack the court, because there's no rule as to how many justices there can be, or impeach the ones that lied. There's no middle ground here. All of these bring the lion out-esque, We need to look like warriors. We're the descendants of witches. No, you're not. You're the descendants of grand wizards. This is the Handmaid's Tale. Pump your brakes, Suzanne. This isn't summer theater camp. Like, white women, y'all were really out here cosplaying reform, revolution. This is not a TV show that you think you're the main character of. When preparing for a protest, a trip to Party City is not on the checklist. Gentrifying existing movements isn't it. Do what you do best. Be a Karen. Eliminate the problem. And after you get those justices impeached, keep the fire going. Increase the fuel on the fire. Ask for legislation that would prevent things like this from happening again. You know, the things that people who look like me have been telling you for generation after generation after generation after generation. Now that it's on your door, sweetheart, you should have seen that knock on the door coming a mile away because the call has been coming from inside the house. But coming from the Brennan Center for Justice, impeachment and removal of judges, an explainer. Judicial impeachment shouldn't be used to punish judges for their rulings, but should be used to punish them for improprieties such as perjury. Judicial impeachment, what is it? Impeachment is the process by which political branches of government, usually the legislature, can remove judges from office. Because the impeachment power lies primarily in the hands of politicians, it is at times threatened for partisan reasons, but the impeachment and removal of judgments is in fact rare and usually limited to grave ethical or criminal misconduct such as perjury, fraud, or conflicts of interest. Well, we've had perjury, and we definitively have conflict of interest within the Supreme Court right now. And it doesn't sit well with me that there is more than one individual sitting in the position of SCOTUS that has viable sexual harassment claims against them. And those questions weren't allowed to be asked at most of their hearings for fear that they would perjure themselves. But they did that on their own anyway. How does the impeachment process work? Federal and state constitutions provide different mechanisms. Federal and state constitutions provide different mechanisms for impeachment of judges, but impeachment is generally a two-step process. With respect to federal judges, under Article 1 of the United States Constitution, the House of Representatives have the power to impeach and the Senate the power to hold a trial to determine whether removal is appropriate. The House can impeach a judge with a simple majority vote. However, a judge may only be removed from office following a trial and vote to convict by 2/3 majority of the Senate. Most states' procedures, no, we don't need to get into states. Yes, ask for impeachment and removal. Where you at, patriots? Where are you, you constitutionalist? You originalist? And that's what I find highly ironic regarding Amy Coney Barrett, because she touts herself on being a constitutionalist of sorts. And she would be willing to perjure herself, knowing the consequences. But, you know, she is white and belongs to a cult, so there's that. So instead of you arguing back and forth and trying to utilize the labor of Black, brown, indigenous women of color, stop trying to look for a slogan. Do what you do best. Complain to the management. And then, and only then, will you get what you desire. But stop calling upon us. We aren't the ones being forced into being human incubators. They care less whether we procreate or not. They're afraid of you losing their top spot in this hierarchy. The hierarchy of race and the hierarchy of capitalism. But that's all for tonight. I will see you all tomorrow for Get Into It with Taz and Chris. We have some great updates for you regarding Brittany Griner, Deshaun Watson, and more. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Till next time.